And Linda, I see calling user 1. Is that you, Linda?
I am here.
All right, we'll get your name up. All right, Everett, I think we're probably good to start. I see all the commissioners that were able to be here tonight.
Okay. All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Sebastopol Planning Commission meeting of November 10th, 2020. Welcome, everyone. Start with roll call for commissioners, please.
Thank you. Chair Fernandez.
Here.
Vice Chair Fitz.
Here.
Commissioner Dauch.
Here. Good evening.
Good evening. Commissioner Ottinger. You're muted, but I do see you here. Kathy. Commissioner Kelly.
Here.
Commissioner Lindenbush.
Here.
Commissioner Howe.
Here.
And Commissioner Wilson is absent tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Consistent with Executive Order N-29-20, in-person participation by the public will not be permitted, and no physical location from which the public may observe the meeting will be available. Remote public participation is available using Zoom program. Okay, we'll go with the approval of the minutes. We'll do them individually, and we'll start with the minutes of the special meeting of October 13th, October 13th, 2020. Are there any changes to that set of meetings? Okay, Commissioner Lindenbush.
This is really minor, but on page 33, this just comes down to an age-old beef in this town of whether it's Sevastopolian or Sevastopolian. I did say Sevastopolian because I stand on that side of the divide. So that's all I had.
Okay.
All right, and look, I'm going to ask if you can email that to us so we can even spell it right.
Gladly.
Anyone else have any changes for that set of minutes? Okay, get a motion to approve the minutes of October 13th, 2020.
I'll move.
Move to approve.
Okay, Commissioner Lindenbush, motion. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Right,
Okay, all in favor? Roll call? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Howe?
Aye.
Commissioner Lindenbush?
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Ottinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Dauch?
Aye.
Vice Chair Fitz?
Aye.
And Chair Fernandez.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously, 7-0.
Okay. And now we'll move on to the minutes of the October 27, 2020 special meeting. Do anyone have any changes or additions to that set of minutes? Okay, Commissioner Lindenbush.
I was just wondering if there was any sort of reason why Superintendent Del Prete's comments weren't included in the minutes. I didn't have any particular problem with it, but I was just sort of curious what the process was on that.
We do not normally include staff presentations in the minutes. We
Okay,
just know that
thank you.
there was a staff presentation. trying to keep them down to 50 pages instead of.
I will say this round was much better than the last round. I don't know if you guys have been kind of refining the software or whatever, but it was much clearer than it was last time.
Thank you. I will let Rebecca know. Yes, we have been working on it as a commissioning process, but we also have started doing, some find and replace before you ever start to take out some of the verbal cues.
Yeah, it was much easier to read.
Okay, I'll pass on that comment.
Thanks.
And anyone else? Okay. Okay, motion to approve the minutes for October 27th, 2020.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Okay, roll call.
All right, Commissioner Haug,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindenbush,
Aye.
Commissioner Ottinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Dauch,
Aye.
Vice Chair Fitz,
Aye.
and Chair Fernandez.
Aye.
All right, that also passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, move on to item number 4, comments from the public on items that are not on the agenda. And we give you 3 minutes for anyone, anyone want to make a comment for items that are not on tonight's agenda.
All right, and you can do that by letting me know in the chat window or by verbally raising your hand if you're on video. I will note while we're looking for that, I have not seen any comments. We have not received any email comments for items not on the agenda.
Okay. All right, so seeing none, I will close public comment for items not on the agenda. And item number 5, does any of the commissioners have any statements of conflict of interest? Okay, assume that's a no. And we'll move on to regular agenda item number 6. Planning Director Swanson, if you want to take us through that.
Sure, thank you. And so this is continued from your October 13th Planning Commission meeting. We did complete the public hearing and the commission voted 6-1 to recommend denial to the City Council. We have brought back a resolution to that effect, and I will let Planner Dave Hogan introduce that and review that for you.
Good evening, commissioners. What I did is I was taking notes at the previous meeting, and then I went back over the resolution and made the changes, deleted everything relating to the approval of the project and the conditions of approval. I modified the findings to represent the key issues that the commission brought up in their discussion. And so what the resolution you have in front of you is recommending, based upon the commentary of the commissioners, that they use the environmental document, and there was actually some discussion on modifying some of the one of the mitigation measures. Staff has included the mitigation measures in the resolution under the heading, under the concept of if the council chooses to approve the project, even though the commission is recommending no, the commission would still like to see these mitigation measures incorporated into the council's final decision. So we've incorporated that into it. That seemed like the best way to incorporate the commission's concerns at the time. There is, and if you'll notice on page 4 of the resolution at the top, that's where we have the commission recommendation on the CEQA, and then the second now therefore is the commission's recommendation to the council to deny the 3 applications. We have since had a request by the applicant to include the date of their voluntary preliminary application, which is the September 12th, 2017. And staff is recommending that we just add that after the word whereas under public process. That doesn't seem, that should have been there in the first place. And that is pretty much what we have. I think we've addressed the commission's concerns, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay. Just going to go down the list of for commissioners. If there's any questions, comments, we'll start with Commissioner Haug.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Dausch.
Yeah, no questions, just one comment. I support referencing the preliminary hearing that the commission held on this item. And I note that at that time, the commission was, I think, other than Commissioner Kelly, were all in support of this application in principle, and asked that the various noise and traffic issues be addressed. So again, I think it's worth noting.
Thank you. Commissioner Kelly.
No comments or questions.
Okay. Commissioner Lindenbush.
And no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Ottinger.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Fritz.
I actually did have a couple of questions / comments, clarifications in the resolution. On that page 4, both the very first paragraph, the very first whereas, and the very last whereas on that page. And this is kind of a fine point, but it mentions the references a mixed use development. I don't necessarily think that the project needed to be a mixed use development. I just think it needed to be developed more intensely. I don't know if it's worth, clarifying that language. I mean, I don't think every project that goes downtown needs to be a mixed use project. And I don't think that's the intention of the higher floor area ratio. It certainly wasn't my opposition to the project. I just think it needs to be developed more intensely. That was the intent of the higher floor area ratio and the discussions we had when we were updating the general plan. So, and the zoning code. So I don't know if it's worth changing that language to just saying, higher intensity development or something like that, rather than referring to a mixed use project, because I wasn't opposed to it because they weren't proposing mixed use. I was, they could have done all residential or all commercial or whatever, but I was just opposed to the lack of intensity of development, I would say.
If the commission agrees, then that's an easy change to make. And
Where did you say that was?
It's on page 4 of the staff report, and it occurs both in the very first whereas on that page and the bottom whereas on page 4.
It's actually page 2 of the resolution, Commissioner.
Oh,
So it'd be page 2 of the resolution. Yeah, page 4 of the full staff report,
Yeah.
page 2 of the resolution.
Yes.
Is that it, or do you have others?
That I think that was all.
Okay.
Yeah, that was all.
Okay. So you mentioned that if there were any recommendations for this to go to council, we talked about the hours of operation. Is that something that needs to be included, or to at least just to consider?
So I think we did not, Dave, we did not include the conditions of approval in this document because we're not recommending. So
So you're not-
yeah, but staff will incorporate that should council direct us to draft conditions of approval for the project. We'll make sure that they adjusted and discuss it in the staff report as well.
just so you don't miss it on that. Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you for
We
that.
won't miss it. Technically, it's part of their application, so it'll be presented to the council, and then the council will take the commission recommendation and then provide direction as to what they want staff to do with it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that the hours, as we discovered, need to match the noise ordinance are. Okay. Okay.
We won't miss that.
Okay. And let's see. Do we need to open this for public comment?
I think I don't.
Um,
Don't quote me on the law. I'm not sure if we do need to, but since there are a couple of members here, I would go ahead if it's okay
Okay.
with you.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up for public comment. If anyone is wishing to make a comment on this resolution, please raise your hand or send a message.
All right, I am seeing none.
Okay, all right. And so we need an approval for this, right? Recommendation, motion.
Yes, we will need that, and I don't know if you want to discuss Paul Fritz's comment about the mixed use versus the more intense development. I do see that those lines.
Yeah.
Or whoever makes the motion, Mr. Chairman, could just include changing mixed use to higher intensity and then adding the date, then staff will make sure that that's addressed.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone's okay with that, that would be my suggestion. I don't
Okay.
want people to think it was just because it wasn't a mixed use project.
Okay, that's acceptable. Good. Okay, were there any? I think there was no other. Okay, so a motion for approval.
I'll move to approve the recommendation of denial with the amendments as stated.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
All right, and then we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Howe,
Aye.
Commissioner Ottinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
aye.
Commissioner Dauch,
No.
Commissioner Lindenbush,
Aye.
Vice Chair Fritz,
Aye.
and Chair Fernandez.
All right.
All right, so that passes on a 6-1 motion. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dave, for your hard work on this.
You're welcome. I
Yeah.
will. It's been a
Thank you,
privilege.
David.
We'll move.
Okay.
And just for the commission's reference, and if there are other folks on here, I see Huck is here, who was, I believe, attending previously. We'll need to confirm the date, but it looks like this will probably be going to council at their second meeting in December.
Is that what's the date of the 15th or?
I believe that's the 15th, yes. And then it will be publicly noticed in newspapers as required.
Okay. All right. So moving on to item 7A, Ives Park improvements maintenance discussion. And this is continued from our last meeting of October 27th. So if we could, Director Swanstrom, just encapsulate summary, what is that we're looking for moving forward on here.
Sure. So, and I do want to, before I forget, we did receive one public comment from Lynn Diedler, and that was passed on to you all. If you didn't get it, let me know and I will send it to you directly. I think tonight's discussion, we talked quite a bit about some of the maintenance items that have been done, and got some question and answers when Dante DeFede was here at the last meeting, where we discussed this. A couple of items that we to summarize what we wanted to try to continue tonight. One was if there were priorities for maintenance items. And there were a couple of comments about potentially having a subcommittee. I would like to note if there is interest in a subcommittee that there be a really specific purpose to it, and goals that they want to achieve. Usually, the other subcommittees that like the Public Art Committee has had, because they are not necessarily attended by staff, they're the commissioners working together. If there are specific things that you're interested in doing, that's always helpful. And then I think, one of the things that would be helpful, I know Dante spoke a bit, and a couple of the commissioners commented on the fact that there are multiple priorities in the city for parks, and Ives Park is an important park, but it's only one of them. And so if there are other comments about other parks, I think that would be helpful for us to hear as well, given some of the comments that Dante discussed at the last meeting.
Okay.
And of course, anything else you'd like to discuss, it's your decision.
Right. And I'll ask Commissioner Haug, since you kind of were the lead on this, if you want to start off, any comments, if you want to talk about a committee, if you can talk about specific what your idea is on that, and then we kind of take it from there.
Thank you, Chair Fernandez. One thing I want to circle back around to is Commissioner Lindenbusch, I don't believe was able to share his comments from the last meeting because we were ran out of time. So I want to definitely hear what he has to say. And Commissioner Ottinger submitted written comments, but I don't believe she attended that meeting. And so if she had any further comments, I would obviously love to hear those. For me, my original intent from this was to generate a priorities list, because for myself personally, I still feel like there's certain things like the crosswalk at Jewel, the issue of fencing, and like painting, the building that Ives Pools in, and other items that I would like to continue to work on in terms of the park. So what I'm hoping would be to see where we all have consensus with one another, and then to generate a priorities list and see if there's a way to move forward with that type of priorities list, working with staff, obviously. And also, I am interested in a park subcommittee, if there's a way that the subcommittee could help facilitate and support. I think Director Swanson's goal, being very goal oriented I agree with that. And I think that's a very efficient way to work. And so if there's a way that we could generate a priorities list and then try to have the parks subcommittee work towards those priorities.
Okay. Do you, I know we'll get some comments from others. Do you want to talk about your priorities? Start with that, or?
Sure. Yeah. So my priorities would, 1, be the crosswalk at Jewel. 2, to look into if there's an alternative to the chain link fence, particularly around the children's playground. 3, to see if we can work with the Public Arts Commission to create a mural, perhaps on the backside of the Ives building, like above the restroom. And 4, I'm really interested in this idea, since we're redoing the asphalt, is there any way that we could do some kind of interesting design near where those stages are at the same time that we redo the asphalt, since we're going to be taking up the asphalt and relaying it down? We seem like we might have some opportunity to add to some interest to the park at that moment, because that labor is already being done. And at this point, that's kind of what I think. The garbage cans sound like they are being addressed because of the grant that Superintendent Del Prete was able to receive. So that seems, that's in order. So for me personally, that would be mine. But obviously, I think the priorities list should be, what's on other people's mind, or what needs they see present.
Okay.
Chair Fernandez, can I ask a clarifying
question? Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
For the crosswalk at Jewel, are you talking about closing that? So the master plan is, the little island that's at Jewel at that corner, has that being combined and that whole roadway going away. Is that what you're talking about when you say crosswalk?
No, so I'm talking about just like immediate, just basically when I walk from the south corner of Jewel, I guess it's southeast corner of Jewel and Willow, basically you could see that you could just extend make a crosswalk in that, across right there, there's enough space at the end of that planted meridian. And so I'm talking about just literally striping it and like putting in maybe like a yield sign or something on the other side. There's a yield side on the south side of the meridian, but there's no signage whatsoever on the north side of the meridian. And I feel like at the very least, there should be a yield sign there because people are always crossing right there. And so I'm just literally saying, like, let's get some yellow paint and like make that into a crosswalk. I'm not sure if there's a ADA compliancy where you'd have to like bump down the curb there. But
yes, as soon as you put a crosswalk in, you're required to have the crosswalk comply with ADA.
Yeah, so I'm not
in consideration.
Yeah, I'm not sure, obviously I'm not familiar with making crosswalks. That's not my area of expertise, but I think, I'm not sure if that's Caltrans or the city or who's in charge of that, but I think at the very least, like some sort of just, hey, there's a park here, there's people going back and forth, because every time I go to the park, there's always someone using that crossing. And so I don't know what the least expensive or least bureaucratic way there is to like, signify human beings crossing the road at the park juncture, but yeah, so as I keep coming back to, I know that there's extremely limited funds. So I'm just looking at things that I am not fully informed on the cost, but I'm just, I'm trying to look at like, well, what, if we just need pedestrian safety, what's the easiest way to get there?
Okay. Thank you for elaborating on that. So I'm going to move to Commissioner Lindenbush, since you didn't get a chance to enter your comments, and then Commissioner Ottinger next after that for your additions too. Oh, you're muted.
Muted. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair Fernandez, and thank you, Commissioner, for convening this. I think this has been really useful. So I did bring up a bit of my comments last time. I think the prioritization of numbers 25 and 27, as noted in the Ives Master Plan, where I would prioritize which centers around the curve at Willow and Jewel. I think from a pedestrian standpoint, that definitely needs work and could also just generate a lot of interest about the park. So that's really where I sort of think if I were planning all of this single-handedly, I think that's where I would start. But it also speaks to a broader question about how we're going to consider parks improvement, because this conversation started as a question of whether or not Sebastopol had the bandwidth or the interest to start a Parks Foundation. And now it seems that our conversation is a bit more about parks improvement. And those, of course, go together hand in hand, but a subcommittee could either be dealing with generating community interest in establishing a Parks Foundation, or surveying the community and determining who beyond as a planning and parks commission what the community interests are. And we've gotten some of that from public comment, but I just think in order for it to be a comprehensive process of public input, we would need, the subcommittee could beneficially be doing some community outreach and determining where the priorities are coming up in the community, and also where the energy is to help make some of this happen with the funding situation that we know that we're dealing with. So those are my main questions. I think I pretty much got to that in the last meeting, just because I mean, it could go on and on about improvements for Ives Park, but I do generally think that a lot of those are underway. And I completely agree with the vast majority of the comments that have been brought about by fellow commissioners. So I'll leave it at that for now, and I'm interested in the thoughts from the commission at large about what a beneficial subcommittee would look like. Who would be interested in what kind of subcommittee for parks improvement or Parks Foundation, whether or not it would be Ives specific. So I also want to echo Director Svanstrom as well in urging that any potential subcommittee that's formed is very specific about its intent and how it's of greater benefit to the broader Parks Commission as a whole.
Thank you for that. And also, Luke, what do you think about about like a community work day? You think that's something committee might also look into?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because so many of the suggestions that have been brought up are ones that might not be brought about in terms of staff time, or they might not be on planning department's radar, public works radar, and that's where we need that additional community ask. So I think that would definitely be in line with what I could see a functioning subcommittee be doing.
Okay. And I do want to be sensitive to staff's availability as well. They got a lot of stuff going on. So when you think about priorities, we'll have to look at see what's doable from that standpoint as well.
Certainly.
Okay, Commissioner Ottinger.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I missed the meeting. I spent most of it right here looking at notes, forgetting that it started early. But you had my my notes already there. But to elaborate my thoughts on the ugly fence around the pool, I've heard people talking about murals, and what I'm envisioning is that the existing fence could maybe be spray painted into a very soft mural where the top is the sky and the imagery below is the view, either mirrored or the view to the west or mirrored from the east at each side. So it sort of blended that wall into the environment that you're already in. Just as an idea, and it would be very soft, but because it's broken up with different colors, it would pull the pool down into the park a little bit more. My other thought overall was that I really feel that the best thing about the master plan is the restoration of the creek. And I would hope that we'd spend a lot of energy and save money to make sure that all the components of that are moving forward. But overall, I felt frustrated because there are so many ideas I was reading in your notes and in the printed out material. And I'm thinking that there are really three components to what we're working on or talking about. And one is that we really started out looking for ways to begin to spend some money on low-hanging fruit at the park. And I felt like the best use of a subcommittee would be to work on that effort alone. And I'm really talking about the lower hanging fruit, the money that we have available to make major improvements for how the park is used now. And there are a lot of things that I could bring up, but I won't. I'll let that committee look at the total comments and pull ideas forward and discuss them and maybe try to get some estimates for what those might mean and how long it might take to accomplish some of them. And then there's this whole other area of the ball field, which is a little frustrating because I know that there's a lot of energy on that already expended and a lot of interest in this space in the park. So I thought perhaps another small subcommittee could just work on that one area and not only determine whether it's just the unlocking of the gates and how the maintenance is taken over by the city or some of it is versus the complete relinquishing of the field by the Little League. And then ultimately to look at the vision for what that area would become if it weren't a ball field. I think you have to look at the plan and the no plan alternative before we start unlocking gates and taking on responsibilities. So look at a whole picture of what we might accomplish there. And I think some people might be interested in doing that. So we should let them maybe go with that. And then the third area is little updates to the master plan. Some people have talked about major projects that aren't part of the master plan. And we've noted that when we read the document now, item number 1 or item number 11 might be out of date. And maybe just doing an overlay to indicate some changes that might be made to that I guess the council would need to approve so that when we're moving forward, we aren't just going over old material. So those were the three areas of if we wanted to look at 1 or 2 or maybe all 3 of those, different people could work on those over a period of time.
Okay. And the fences you were talking around the pool, you're talking about that slatted with the little slat. Yeah.
They look like they've been spray painted gray. And
Yeah.
it seemed to me that a soft, fuzzy off distance mural could look like the Sonoma Hills or the
Yeah, I was thinking.
trees and hills, or maybe even could reflect, the ball field or the trees that are partly there. It could just blend in with the nature up to the sky without having a lot of imagery. I did, however, think that right now that the side of the fence on Willow that goes to the pool has a lot of directional signage, which could be designed into a design that's more friendly oriented. Maybe I mentioned this in my comments, I can't exactly remember, but more like, animals or children with their swimming suits and their flippers and snorkeling equipment, or maybe just flowers and butterflies or insects or dinosaurs. I don't know what it is, but it could be incorporated with signage that says where the pool opening is. And then of course, right now we have a lot of COVID signs, but those could be affixed to it. But it seems like that could be more welcoming and more, and the mural itself could be the direction down to the pool.
Okay. Good ideas. Okay, Commissioner Dausch.
Thank you. I don't really have, I mean, if we're talking about priorities, again, I sort of listed those last time, and those were really, I think there is some inexpensive ways to address removing some of the asphalt. There's areas of asphalt that simply could be removed. It could be cut in such a way as to form the paths, form a reduced pathway. And obviously there's some maintenance of that asphalt as well that is in a important need, and I would consider, low hanging fruit after we're talking about the routine maintenance. I think the next order of magnitude for me is asphalt pathway improvements, and as I discussed last time, fencing and possibly a post and rail fence at the creek. I think there is, as we know, one of the complicating factors is that we discuss these issues as though we're going to be able to action everything in a fairly short period of time. And of course, the reality is it's going to take time. Unless we do get a grant and we do move into some more major work and improvements on the park, it's likely that it's going to take a number of years to realize the big picture and the big plan. So I think it's choosing some items that are manageable, perhaps with some fundraising. I really appreciate the sentiment around work days and volunteerism and things like painting the fence and doing those things that will offer real improvement. I think are things that can continue to be worked on and done more in the maintenance realm. But in terms of actual improvements, I think looking at the pathways and the fencing is the place to focus, and that could be realized probably in a period of a year or two or three versus 10 or 12 or 15 years for other more major improvements. While to speak to some of the other thoughts, the crosswalk, again, I appreciate the sentiment for that improvement, and I agree with it. But the red tape, if you like, or the amount of planning and effort that would be required to get what appears to be such a simple improvement done is huge, and could easily suck up all of the effort for the next number of years to get that single improvement done. So, it's a balance for me about where and what we can accomplish in a feasible manner. So I think that's really what I have to say. So my priorities would be, let's make a plan that we can implement on pathway improvement and come up with either sections of fence or all of the fence being replaced, either with new chain link or preferably with a some post and rail or something a bit more aesthetically pleasing, that would also satisfy, I think, the concerns the city has around liability with the steep sides and concrete alignment and access issues, especially in the wintertime when that is not a friendly creek, but a pretty significant and hazard.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Kelly?
Okay, I'm very happy to have Commissioner Ottinger's comments now in the discussion, and agree with them very much. My concern is still the ball field and what we can do around making it more accessible to other park users. And then my third comment is about this park is such an opportunity for public art, and making sure that we include that in as we're moving forward. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Fritz?
Fernandez, can I add one comment?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to also, with regard to a subcommittee, I strongly support a motivated subcommittee looking into working on, this park and others, of course, potentially. But Commissioner Lindenbush's ideas around a subcommittee and a committee that could really look at and help the city get their, arms around costs or fundraising or other elements once one or two items are perhaps chosen to work on. So I strongly support a motivated subcommittee working on this, and I think that would be a wonderful thing if we can pull that together.
Okay, great, thank you. Vice Chair Fritz.
Thanks. I just have a quick question for Carrie, actually. I know we did that, we reviewed the asphalt kind of plan, the repaving plan a couple months ago. Is that, I can't remember, I should remember because I was there, but what is that? Is that an actual project that's funded, or what is that, and where does that stand?
Sure. And so that is or will be funded. There is a state grant, Prop 68, which is one of the things on my to-do list of apply for a grant for $200,000. $100,000 of that was used at the Libby Park, the new super playground. That was becoming a safety issue with the old playground where they couldn't actually get parts anymore, if you'll recall, because of how, not necessarily how old it was, but it was a low bid, and the company went out of business. So that is now replaced with a new beautiful, and we're trying to figure out in COVID time how we can do at least a small opening. The playground is open as of a few weeks ago under some changed restrictions. But anyway, that's taking about half of the grant money. The other half would be used with some required city match fund, which will come from the Measure M Parks Fund, to do as much as we can of the pathway. So that is an actual project. It will start in the southwest corner and continue up as far as it can. I think certainly if we get good bids, we'll be able to do more of it than less of it. Those construction documents are done. So once we have the grant funds contracted for, we can bid and do the work. I anticipate the work will be done in early spring, because doing work during the winter for pathways and things is really much more difficult. So we're looking at bidding it this winter and doing the work this spring. The sculpture garden is the actual pads and the work for that, even if that pathway isn't replaced, is also a real project. That's the Public Art Committee is actually going to be finalizing the call. They've had a subcommittee working on the draft call for a number of months, but we're looking at finalizing it at their December meeting so that we're ready to release that out as well. So.
Great, thank you. So, yeah, so I agree. One of my priorities, I'd say, would be the asphalt, because I think, one, there's way too much of it, and what is there is in pretty horrid condition. So that's an important piece for me. So I'm glad. That's kind of what I remember. I thought that was a real project, and there was a way to get at least partially funded. So I'm happy that is moving forward. I'm also very concerned about the intersection with Jewel and Willow. I don't walk as much without my dog, but I used to walk my dog through there a lot, and it's horrible, especially with an old dog. It doesn't move very quickly. And I think, while the master plan document has a, beautifully rendered corner there, I mean, I think there could be potentially some kind of interim, even just sort of trial thing, and have K-rails on my mind with the parklet projects, but I think that there could be a way to, get some K-rails and block off that weird swoop of Willow, and then you could easily make a crosswalk across Jewel at that point. And then I think as to what happens in that area, I think we need to sort of figure out, maybe there's some, game tables or different things that we could do somewhat inexpensively on the asphalt there. We can make that, just sort of bring that into the park, get some K-rails, block it off, and program something that would be relatively affordable to do. Just again, it could be just kind of a, hey, is this worth doing? Can we take like little baby steps along the way rather than ripping up all the asphalt? And maybe we could just get planters to plant some, it can be maybe a community garden that's just in planters, or I don't know, or chess or checkers or different kinds of games like that. Anyway, that's kind of a possible way to do that without biting off the whole thing, and it would be something I would be interested in, because I that intersection's horrible, and then a lot of people do make that crossing. People that live up Jewel and First Street and Leland, if they're coming to the park, that's how they have to get there, and it's not safe at all. So that's really a priority for me. And the fencing, I agree with Zach. The fencing and the asphalt are what make the park a bit of an eyesore. So as much as those can be improved upon, either with replacing the fencing or just repairing parts of it if they're in bad condition, and maybe incrementally over time, taking sections down and putting it up with something that's more attractive, I would be in favor of that kind of approach.
Okay. So I agree with, obviously the blacktop. What I was wondering is if we could add in like a striped line, essentially, like, that you have on the road on both sides, like white, that would kind of maybe make a trail through the park there, might soften the look a little bit. And, when talking about games, maybe you take part of it and paint in a hopscotch numbers or something kind of like that to, take away from just a lot of the blacktop area. I agree that the Jewel Avenue crosswalk is something that needs to be looked at. But I think that I'm not sure what would be involved. I think it might be something maybe a little bit more difficult, but maybe in the meantime, you could put a sign there that at least says, to cross, go to the nearest crosswalk with the arrow pointing. And, I know probably most people won't do that, but at least something there telling people that, those are safer areas to cross over. And that would be something I think inexpensive while we're trying to figure out those areas. I'd like to see some public artwork in the middle where so you got the fence surrounding the water area. So some kind of public art, some of those recycled type art items, could be a metal structure, animal or something like that. In that center area, I think would be good. I had same also with the fencing with the slats that Commissioner Ottinger had mentioned. I think that would be an easy project, or at least inexpensive from that standpoint. I know that there's probably several areas that bushes need to be either planted or shrubbery, and that should be something to be looked at. It just makes it a little bit more, points people into the entrances versus just kind of cutting anywhere. I think some signage, I know that at some point probably want to have some good entry entryways and signs, but I think at least something that says that it's Ives Park. I don't know if there's anything anywhere says Ives Park, maybe even on that corner by the Jewel Avenue, that fence that's kind of sitting there could be a good place for some signs. Again, just indicating that. Let's see. Bark or would be, some of the areas needs to be redone. That could be something that maybe community work day could do, help with that part, spreading out the wood chips and so forth. As far as the ball field, I agree, we need to do something, take a look at that, see what the situation is. I would like to, at least in the meantime, if it's possible, I know they have sponsors and so forth, but maybe remove some of the signs so that there's a few areas that you can look through and at least see the, the nice grass that's there. That would be an easy fix, and open that up a little bit for there. There's also a lot of electrical along the retaining wall between the path and the ball field. There's a lot of like electrical boxes and items there. I don't know if they need to be looked at and either covered or just made a little bit safer, even just painting and so forth. Let's see. I think that's what I had. I think that as far as the committee, probably would be helpful to maybe come up with maybe initially step one would be maybe some of these maintenance items. We have the funding to do it, that we can do that. And then I think overall best use would be to see if we can do a park fund and start to kind of explore that. I think that that's the best thing that we can do for the long term to get that the master plan. Otherwise, that's never going to happen. And we may have to revisit the master plan. Some things have changed or outdated or so forth. So that might be something to start with from that standpoint. So let's see. And I think that's probably got a pretty good list on that. I was going to open it up for public comment to see if public has any other comments or ideas on that item. So go ahead and if anyone would like to speak on that this subject, please indicate by raising your hand or send a message.
Thank you, Chair. We do have, as I noted, we do have the one written public comment that you received, and I see Kyle has his hand raised, so I am unmuting you now, Kyle.
Great, thanks.
And I think we have a timer. Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Thanks.
So if you direct your attention to my virtual background, you'll see a photo from 1961 of Ives Park. This is my great-grandfather. He's feeding the ducks. This is looking east. You'll see in the north, the top left corner of the photo is the baseball field, and you can see the creek on the right-hand side. So this just gives you a little bit of perspective about the history of Ives Park and where it has been, and hopefully this can be considered in the future when you're making decisions about the park. A couple of things I just wanted to mention. Please do not just go out with yellow paint and paint a crosswalk in the center of probably one of the most complicated vehicular intersections in the city. Even more so with the increase of the amount of traffic that intersection is seeing as a result of our lack of control of traffic on Bodega Avenue, right? It is now the major thoroughfare, dropping down at the post office and making a right onto Main Street. I encourage this body to find opportunities to reduce fences, gates, vertical visual blocks to access. Libby Park comes to mind as well. I encourage this body to consider material studies, specifically comparing gravel, asphalt, and concrete. I think you might find that specifically for trails, concrete might be a better long-term solution, even if it is more expensive on the initial side of things in terms of maintenance, long-term, ADA compliance, maintenance for sure. The reason why we're dealing with such an issue with the asphalt in Ives Park right now is because it is asphalt and not concrete. In terms of vegetation, this is just really brief. I would just consider maybe using pineapple guava. It's an amazing ground cover. It's meant to be a shrub. If you want to see a good use of it on Bodega, right in front of what's the kitchen? Like a private kitchen next to the fire station. Right there.
The series.
Right
Very
there,
sketchy,
they're
yeah.
using pineapple guava right at the edge in a very unique way. And the one thing about pineapple guava is that even as it grows and becomes more of a tree, it still provides amazing ground cover. It's got great root structure. I've got some larger in my yard, and there's no real soil runoff or degradation in the area. It's an amazing plant for purposes like this. And thank you so much for your dedicated time.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like that is it for public comment.
Okay.
And Chair Fernandez, I don't know if you want me to comment on a couple of things in terms
Yeah,
of what
please
I
do.
think may or may not be low-hanging fruit. So one of the comments was removal of asphalt, and I believe Commissioner Dauch had talked about the asphalt at the Rose Garden area, the east of the ball fields, that is basically gone. And I did my own walking tour. I saw the same thing, and to me, yes, so replacing things with ADA takes a lot of work, but if you simply remove that and let it be more of a dirt trail, which it almost is anyway in most parts, that may be something that is, yes, it costs money to have a contractor do that, but it's because it's in the shape it is, and they're going to be doing the demo of the rest of the pathway that they're rebuilding. It may be something that may be a cost-effective thing to add on as a potential alternate, depending on the cost when we bid the pathway project. So that to me is, and I think would actually I agree with the commission, it would have a big impact to just, rather than having a grubby asphalt, to just have it be a natural path or just pretty long. The comments about the Jewel Willow intersection. Yes, a crosswalk is much more complicated because you have to have the right cross strips for the crosswalk. So you're talking about the asphalt as well as the curb and gutter. And I think we all saw how long the installation of the ADA curb ramps took Caltrans this summer, even when there wasn't a lot of traffic. So that is a fairly expensive initiative. However, what Vice Chair Fritz talked about in terms of, potentially doing, we are doing 3 temporary parklets, but they're with concrete barricades along Main Street that are coming in next week. And one of the things that I'm thinking is sort of along the lines of what Commissioner Fritz is talking about, is that something where we can work with W-Trans to say, hey, look, the master plan has this, the curved intersection coming out. Is that something we can temporarily close at least and see how it works? And then that blocks off that whole, there's still right turns and left turns available to that intersection, but it takes out that second intersection. And then that could potentially become something where it's an additional gathering space, and see how that works. So even though that seems like a big move, if it's temporary and it's not Caltrans, so the permitting for that is much as a city council authorization, and a lot less. We may also have some extra concrete barricades from the Parklet project. So if we do, that would be good. There was a question about the signage, and I did want to comment that the city did do, before I was on board, there was a project to do wayfinding signage. There were 3 phases of it. One of them has been implemented, and that was the ped line and the pedestrian signage that's around town, wayfinding signage that you see in like at the theater across the street from Whole Foods and the police station. There's, here's the map of downtown so that people can on foot can get around town. The second part of that is actually wayfinding for parking for the city's parking lots, which I've heard from the business owners certainly that, hey, we have parking, people just don't know where it is. So, and then the third phase of it is signage for public buildings, and so that is part of it. And so that, I think there is one on High Street, just north of the Art Center. But I agree something, and I don't recall if there's something in the package. I know I reviewed it a couple of years ago. I don't know if there's something along this the southwest corner or the crosswalk that's right by the pool. But I do agree there's not a lot of signage on that side of the park saying, hey, this is a city park and whatnot. So, but that's something I can look into. Those two phases aren't funded yet, but we will be looking at how we can fund those. And then lastly, regarding the ball fields, I did find the lease for that and sent that to the city manager's office so they could take a look at it and expressed, conveyed the planning commission's concerns regarding it really being a locked field. And I reread the lease. It certainly does note that they're able to schedule and coordinate other groups, but that is also their responsibility as well. So not necessarily unlock the gate and have it being open field all the time, but to at least intensify the use. And so I'm looking into whether or not they're actually doing that part of it and I think perhaps signage on the field saying, if you'd like to, rent or use this field, please contact, so that it's a little bit more understandable in terms of, and then would likely get more utilization. So those are my preliminary comments, just to answer some of the commission's thoughts as you progress.
Okay, I had a couple of things. So I think consideration should be given for items or maintenance and taking into consideration events. And I know right now we're not having any, and it kind of maybe slipped our mind that there was a day we could, and maybe there will be one in the future. So are there like benches that need to be moved or sitting places or, those kinds of things to take into consideration? I know, we talked about the stage on there. And then there is a sign that is, before you get to the bathrooms, it's there's kind of like an overhang, empty area, and there's like a directional sign. I don't know if that's from Cheetah Slough. I'm not sure. It's kind of like a directional, but it's. I mean, if you happen to be walking through there, you see it, but it's not real obvious, and that would be better served to have maybe in other areas. I'm trying to recall what exactly it was, but.
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the wayfinding sign, the pedestrian, that first phase of that. I think that's
right.
Was part of that.
Yeah, and then, I mean, it's a nice sign, but it's just not, you happen to be walking there, you'll find it, but otherwise, if you come in and you need the other entrance, it's not really something that's easily locatable. And then I also wanted just to poll the commission as to who may be interested to serve on this committee. And again, it sounds like initially it's just to come up with the priorities and maybe just a little bit of research as far as the maintenance. And then beyond that, next phase is just to look at park funding and or if you see it a different way. Other than that, maybe come back to the commission with those ideas or talk to myself and the planning director. So are there commissioners that would be interested in serving on this committee?
I am definitely interested in serving on that. I just wanted to make a few comments. One is I feel, I've been listening to people's comments, and I do think that this, particularly in Ives Park, I think it would be wonderful to strengthen our relationship to the Public Arts Committee. And, for instance, these issues of signage, they have the sculpture garden there. Would it be possible to work with them to get some sort of archway or signage at that entrance at that on High Street near the creek? To have like an artist make some sort of signage. And I like Commissioner Ottinger's idea about the mural around Ives and how she thought of doing wayfinding in the mural. There seems like there's ample opportunities for perhaps collaboration with the Public Arts Committee to really think about Ives as a city park that showcases, because it's downtown, like a connection to the arts in some ways. And once again, with Commissioner Fritz's idea of a parklet there, that would also kind of tie into that in some ways. And with your idea, Chair Fernandez, of doing something fun and playful with the asphalt, like I'm just thinking if there's ways that maybe just bring a little bit more fun and incorporate more public art into Ives, that could be like a centering and factor for it as we do these improvements. And my second comment is, since the asphalt is a project that's going to be moving forward, maybe we can bring our ideas to it, you know, as it's being processed, so that we can incorporate more, like, is it asphalt removal, which I think is a good idea. And then also, like, what are some of the other adjustments that we can make that would, since we're already spending the money, that can just, we can get more value for the money that we spend. So those were my two comments. And I also am curious about the pricing for the fencing. You know, I feel that we're at a disadvantage because some of the chain link obviously needs to be repaired. So what is the price differential of repairing it with chain link versus what Commissioner Dauch was suggesting, post and rail, or even what they have at Willard Libby, which is wood with that small wire mesh behind it?
Okay. Yeah, and I think it might be good to perhaps contact the Sebastian Center for the Arts and see if there may be someone there that might also want to participate or give some of their input. They could be maybe the liaison to the art community on there.
And actually on that one, I think, so planning also handles the public art committee, as you know. I know their December agenda is full, but I think if there was a subcommittee member or a liaison from the planning commission who was interested in reaching out, that is something we can probably agendize. I can talk to the chair for that. But that is something we could potentially talk with them as an agenda item in January, perhaps in January, February, and try to move some of these projects forward. I know at least one of the council members has also mentioned the fencing, and you know, I know the public they're also trying to do commissioned art pieces, not just beautification, but I think certainly you know, like the sculpture garden, that's kind of a combination of the two. And so if there are opportunities for that, I think it's certainly worth discussing with them.
Okay. And then also Kyle's comments regarding looking at maybe some different types of material, see if that's worth considering. I know, like you said, it's more cost up front, but is that something that looks better and is going to be more lasting down the road? Okay, so we have Commissioner Haug, other commissioners wanting to participate on this committee, or Commissioner Haug, I can leave it up to you if you want to make contacts, but if anybody's initially interested, please say so.
I think I would be interested in being.
Okay, thank you.
I would also be interested.
Okay.
But also, Chair Fernandez, if you're planning to be on the subcommittee, I'm also happy to yield as well, especially considering the climate action subcommittee is going to be getting going as well. So want to make sure that everyone...
I could be an alternate, or you know, from that standpoint. So I can certainly help however I can.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Should we have the committee come back with recommendations and also what their purpose is, or can I get some input on that? And how long until we want to hear from the committee?
I would just say, I think it would be good if we could get on to the Public Arts Committee agenda to see if there's, you know, what the feasibility of collaboration and what their interest is. I think that would be important to know, because I think that, you know, for instance, if we are able to get a mural, we could work with them to, you know, hopefully put out a call and, you know, see where, you know, if there's any funding overlap or what the process for that would be, what that looks like. Mm-hmm. I am also interested in coming back to something that Commissioner Lindenbush brought up earlier. I'm also interested in developing a survey for the public, you know, to see what their primary uses of Ives are and what kind of improvements they would, you know, would increase their enjoyment and use of the park. So I think it would be good to develop that, maybe release it sometime in February or March, if that's like a realistic timeline. And I think also if Director Swanstrom feels like we can do a parklet, we should probably investigate that, since that was, you know, in that corner. And then I think we also should be looking at the asphalt.
Okay. And do you think
If
you
that
could?
sounds like a lot, or
Yeah, and Commissioner Hug, I'm not sure the last two, those seem more like they're staff questions than a subcommittee question. So for the potential parklet, I can contact, first I'll discuss with the other department heads, because obviously they're the engineering manager. It is something that I would want to make sure that we have our traffic consultant look at. I think that's probably within the budget of just our sort of general consulting services, since we're looking at doing it, you know, as a temporary measure, and there's no rerouting of traffic per se, since everyone can still just go straight to the, you know, straight on Willow West and then make a right or left turn. But I do want to check with him. Usually, you know, when you're making major road changes, if they're permanent, you get into CEQA and you need to do the environmental review on that. But if it's a temporary closure like this, then it's exempt because it's not a permanent action. So that's an easy way around that to kind of see, to do that, but, you know, have it be a temporary parklet, but still be able to see, you know, if it has a lot of impact on traffic, if it has a lot of impact on the park, what are they, positive, negative, etc.
I think this may have been before your time, Carrie, but W-Trans did look at that intersection. I think it may have been during the general plan update, or I remember there was a conversation at one point, and I know Steve actually did. He has to analyze that intersection already, so it should be a fairly easy conversation for him to have. Because I know he's already kind of looked at. I think he's already kind of looked at counts and. I don't remember.
And it may be that it was done as part of the master plan, you know, before putting it into an adopted master plan, because that in itself.
Yeah, I know. I've definitely seen him give a presentation. I can't remember if it was to the council or the general plan advisory committee or when it was, but about reconfiguring that intersection. So that he should have that information pretty readily available. And my recollection was that it was possible to do.
Yeah, it was just real expensive, and it was, I think it went to the council and they looked at it. But I think it was the expense that was the main concern versus what we gain in that space.
Yeah, I think it was.
It does exist and it's fresh.
Yeah, and I think it was, you know, doing the whole thing. But like I said, if we just did this kind of trial, temporary thing, it might be something easier to do.
Right. And then that'll still have costs with it, because I know like the parklets are. Was a budget item for council, but I can certainly, I think that's a sort of a small enough piece that even though it's not a direct relation to the master plan, I'm happy to look into that and then bring that back to the commission, or work with the subcommittee to see, yes, is this something that they want to bring back to the full commission.
Yeah, in fact, I think there were three alternatives, I think there were three alternatives that they looked at. One including a temporary or a partial closing rather than a completely engineered structure.
And I'll just say, you know, I know the parklets are temporary in themselves, and you know, maybe when the parklets go away, we take all those K rails and, you know, use them over. You know, that's when we kind of do this other temporary K rail project. You know.
Yeah, no, that is quite possible, and the city did purchase them instead of renting them because of, yes, then they're available for other uses like this. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe, you know, next summer when COVID's over and the parklets go away, and then we could repurpose those K rails for something, another project.
Okay. I'd like to see us try to accomplish those maintenance items that the commission wanted prioritized, so that we don't get caught up, say, reviewing the crosswalk, and then that kind of delays the other things. So, you know, my thinking is that if we can prioritize those, come back with, hey, you know, whatever information, these are the ones, and then kind of have it like a recommendation, and make that kind of a quicker item initially, just to get those things done. I don't know how everybody else feels about that.
And Chair Fernandez, are you thinking that would be a budget request, or?
I mean, it would just be like taking so that maybe staff doesn't have to deal with it as much, because it's probably going to need some legwork. But all the list of things that we mentioned, and maybe they could talk with Dante and say these are kind of our priorities. Do they need to talk to like Public Art Committee? So try to get as many of those that we can that are realistic accomplished, and then things that are going to take a little bit longer, maybe kind of have that as a second pass through. Does that make sense?
I think so, and I think the concern I'm sort of seeing is a lot of the things that were mentioned have dollars attached to them, but no money identified. So like if you're talking about replacing fencing or removing asphalt or changing, putting up new signage, those all take money or staff time, which is the same thing since Dante has 12 people running the whole city.
And there may already be, Dante may, like some of the budgeting that he got for maintenance, like say the garbage cans is an example, that's one thing we wanted to do. Well, that's sounds like he has the funding for that. So maybe we add some artwork to those garbage cans or something like that. So again, it wouldn't take a lot of funding, but communication with the art committee, and same thing with the fencing, painting, and we'll take some funding, but I think those types of things, if we can use some of the Measure M funding initially, I think it'd just be nice to be able to move forward on those and get some of those accomplished as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think that's where it may be helpful to have the subcommittee sort of look at those and look at if there are some things that can be done with volunteers, a volunteer day push versus needing to be done by, some of it's Dante's staff, but like the removal of asphalt and whatnot, that's a contractor, most likely not.
But wood
not
chips
city
and,
staff, so,
Okay. Anyone else have any other comments or feedback?
Chair Fernandez, just to clarify that, so the maintenance items that you're referring to, is that from the list that Dante went over at our last meeting? Or I feel like I'm a little like fuzzy on which, like if I'm missing some sort of list, or do we need to like regenerate a maintenance list after Dante's presentation last time?
Well, I'm wondering if perhaps some of the items that we spoke about is on his maintenance list. And so that would, you could check those off, or maybe you just get some information on him because some of those are more like improvement, like some of the painting part is improvement. The fencing, I guess that's an improvement versus a maintenance. I don't know how you would look at that. So maybe I think it would be good to kind of just touch base with him and talk about the list we came up with, what they're doing maintenance wise, and see how those match up initially.
Okay, yeah, so kind of coordinating from his presentation and that original document from 2017, and then with our current input into it as well.
Yeah, does that make sense? And I think that would be that'd be the quickest thing. And then other items that are going to take a little bit longer can be worked on, and then as well as like I said, the park funding would be great, because that's the one thing that's just been holding this up as far as doing anything with the master plan. And the surveying is good too, but that's why some of the maintenance and some of the easier painting, that kind of stuff we can take care of, and then there may be other things that we might not have thought of that the public might want to talk about that maybe would be incorporated into the master plan versus be something that are quick fixes.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. All right. No one has any others. We'll move on to planning director's report.
Thank you. And one last thing on that, Kate, do you have the prior maintenance list in Word, or is that something I could send to you to work on?
Well, I have the document that it's from 2017, and from our special meeting, Dante pretty much went through that itemized. And so I just have that document, and I was just going to use either look at the video from that meeting or, use notes from it to kind of figure out what's been done. I don't know.
Got it. Okay. Okay, great. I
If
think
you have
that's great.
something that's more precise, I, obviously welcome that.
Yeah, no, I just know that he used the 2017 report and kind of went through and gave an update on what had been done or not. So if you need the 2017 report just in a Word document, I don't know, as opposed to a PDF, just let myself and Rebecca know.
Okay, yeah, that would be helpful to have it in Word. Thank you.
I'll have Rebecca send that to you.
Okay, thank you. My other question, Director Swanstorm, is our Measure M funds for this year, we already spent, right? Because
they are allocated, yes. So part of it is the match for the asphalt, the pathway project. And then there's a couple other items that the restroom at the Burbank farm project is, I think, the other big chunk of it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair Fernandez, do you want me to move on to the report? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So obviously we had an election. It was successful. It is not yet certified. So technically it needs to be certified by December 3rd, I believe, under state law. As many of you know, we have 2 council positions and a very tight race going on. So those are not yet certified, but we'll certainly let you know when, likely at our next meeting, everything will have been certified. We do have application period open we had 2 planning commission positions that are expiring at the end of this year and 3 design review board positions. So I do want to, in the planning commission positions, that's Vice Chair Fritz and Commissioner Wilson. So I want to encourage you to reapply, and also to, if you know of other interested folks for either the DRB or the Planning Commission, encourage them as well. I will note the DRB has, so the Planning Commission positions are both within city limit positions. We have one outside, but in the zip code, and that's Commissioner Ottinger's seat. The DRB, Design Review Board, has particular categories that they require. They have this because they're doing architectural and landscape design review a lot. So they have one for category A, which is an architect or landscape architect, one for category B, which is either of those or a contractor or similar profession. And then they have one in category D, which is, hold on. Which is the alternate position for that, for the board, in case, just like our alternate, in case someone is gone. I will note we have 5 DRB members, so that 6th alternate does get pulled in quite a bit more than, especially since a number of them own property in town and need to recuse themselves. So that is a pretty often used position. And then lastly, just to update you on the parklets, we did have a meeting with the business owners to work with them on that. And thank you, Vice Chair Fritz, again for your volunteerism, attending that meeting and helping to coordinate some of the design of them as well. We will have 3 parklets going in. They will be installed by Public Works next Monday and Tuesday, depending on how long it takes. The locations for them, one is, and I'm not going to give addresses because I know y'all probably don't know addresses any more than I do. One's in front of Retrograde and the Sunshine Cafe area on Main Street. Another will be in front of, generally in front of where People's Music is. And then the last one will be in front of Create It and Screaming Mimi's. And that one will be not just the parking space, but also that that Western Drive aisle that is, you can only access from Depot Street to go forward. Another one of those, maybe if we see how that goes, maybe that's a permanent change, because I don't know how many people actually ever use that. But it's an opportunity to see what happens when we actually close the lane of traffic, not just the parking. And so those are all going in, like I said, next Monday. I'm looking forward to that. In general, we do have a couple of interesting design review board items coming up in the next couple of weeks. One is next Wednesday for the sort of redesign of the facade and a few other internal components for the, what I'll call the Round Table building, the building at the corner of Burnett and Main Street. And then on Thursday, we have continued preliminary review discussion for what's called the Woodmark Apartments, which is an 84-unit apartment project on Bodega Avenue. I believe the address is 7716 and 7760. And then lastly, the last DRB meeting, as many of you know, we restructured the facade improvement grant program to try to get more interest, and it looks like we did have more interest. We actually had 4 applicants in a quarter, which is, I think, it's probably 75% of what we had all the previous year. So it was nice to see, and all of those were approved. So they included signage, some changes at the Bear Radiance facade, as well as signage that's on Weeks Way, facing the plaza, Funk and Flash, and I apologize, I can't remember the other one. Alan Montes is in charge of that group and love that effort. So I count that as a success. We had more engagement. We have relaxed the rules a little bit, and that seems to be helping folks as well. And that's it for my report, unless happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions for Director Swanstrom? Okay. Before I adjourn, I just want to thank everyone for all the different participations, Vice Chair Fritz and Commissioner Hogg and Commissioner Lindenbush and Ottinger. One of my goals this year was to try to get more participation from the Planning Commission, kind of help out, take some of the pressure and off of the City Council and try to do more from us. So I just want to say thank you for stepping up and accomplishing more than we normally would. So thank you very much for that. If there's nothing else, I will adjourn this meeting. And
I will
yes.
note, so the one pending item that we have for the commission, at this point, we don't have any current applications ready to go yet, although we will in the coming months. We do have the housing discussion item. What I would propose is that we cancel the November 24th and have that discussion on the 8th, if that's acceptable to the commission.
Okay. So yeah, so the 24th is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So we'll normally take a break on that one. So that'll be the case this year as well.
Right,
So,
and then the other meeting that is generally canceled, although I'm not going to ask you to cancel it now, because if we do have an item, we would need it, is December 22nd. And usually if there's a hearing, it's not a good time to get public participation.
Yeah.
That Thanksgiving week. So.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Dr. Swanstrom. That's your good work as usual and your staff. Appreciate it. And I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and have a good Thanksgiving.